Thank you guys so much for making the time to be on the show.
Of course.
I have to say, before we delve into anything else, I took a measure of, I guess, satisfaction or maybe just relief that this was postponed by 20 minutes because you had to do laundry. So I was
Yes.
like, all right, these guys are Hollywood, but it's nice to know that they're still doing laundry. So man, I am like so many people, and certainly like so many comedians, just so excited to watch everything that's going on for you guys right now with Judas and the Black Messiah. So
Thank you, brother.
congratulations! You're very welcome. And how has it been for you guys?
Well, I mean, it's been whirlwind because you never expect to be in this situation at this level. So it's like it's been weird. I mean, it's hard for me to like really like wrap my mind around. I think I'll be able to process it more fully once we're past the award ceremony because I'm such a like student of history, so I'm like always overwhelmed by things of this magnitude. So I really want to like dig my teeth into it, study it, come up with some good jokes so I can get on stage and like really
Mm-hmm.
dissect it.
Yeah, yeah, I bet it's got to be a little bit of an out of body experience. But I
For
guess
sure.
what makes it special for you guys is that it's two bodies sharing that experience. And Keith, what were you going to say? What has your experience been?
Oh no, I was just gonna, I mean, echo some of what Kenny said. It's very surreal. We come from the stand-up world, and our world is, it's day by day. We get up, we do our set, we dissect it, and we have a way of life that we grow accustomed to and that we appreciate. But that was taken away this year, so it was a lot of like reflection on like what we want to do with our careers, and then this shit happens with with the Oscars and the movie coming out, and it's just like it's just a world that I'm not. It's a world that I didn't necessarily want, and it's a world that I don't know if I can ever get accustomed to. But it's still very surreal.
Well, that's the best way to enter it, I guess, right? If you go in as skeptics and you go in with kind of keeping it a little bit at arm's distance, and
Right.
like you said, Kenny, being a student of history and everything, you guys are well equipped, and having the special partnership that you do, the
Right.
familial partnership that you do, I think stands you in good stead to navigate those waters. But
Right.
what better way to spend the pandemic, man? Like most comedians are sitting home doing Zoom shows, and you guys are picking out tuxedos and everything. So it's gotta be great. And like I said, coming from the comedy community, like you said, it is such a different world. And in a way, comedians were always dissecting those things
Right.
and looking
Right.
at it from the outside, in a sense. So it's got to be great, and to do it on your own terms was so special. I was listening to an interview with you guys with on Cornell West's
Right. Right.
podcast, and Lil Rel was on as well. And he spoke about when you guys were doing Friends of the People, and how I guess you shared a desk or were adjacent or whatever, and you
Yeah.
guys were working on the idea or had the beginnings of the idea for Judas and the Black Messiah back then. I mean, that,
Right.
that must have been pretty trippy because, I mean, Friends of the People was such a great show and such a kind of a cult comedy hit. And to be working on something of that magnitude while you were doing it, are these the kinds of things you foresaw for it, or was it kind of like, all right, this is something that interests us, this is a passion, let's see what we can do with this?
Our sort of relationship with film goes back to I think we really like had our moment of appreciating it in high school. We met our a friend of ours. He's a Nigerian guy, and he was just like this sort of cinephile, and he sort of schooled us to the game, and we became pretty obsessed with it. Keith even became like a Oscar prognosticator, so he would
Hmm.
predict which movies would win Oscars. He would predict the categories, and I was very much invested in that with him as well
Because
while
you
we
had
were in
because you
law
had
school.
because you had money on it, or just
No, no, no. This is all for the love. I wish I had money on it.
yeah, yeah,
But
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
so we've always been like, kind of
fans of film and the Oscars, and so I think when we were conceiving of the idea, that was sort of baked into our subconscious, at least. And I think in our minds, we always thought if we ever got the chance to make a feature film, we're going to want to compete for Academy Awards. I mean, that's if we got a chance to make a film and it did well with the critics and we put it in a position to compete, we're going to want to compete. So I think that's always sort of, that was always in our subconscious.
So isn't this in a way the intersection of so many things that truly are your passion and coming from your soul? You're talking about history. You're talking about being a cinephile and having a love of film and really the nuts and bolts of how things are made and digging into all of that. And then to have a chance to write something about Fred Hampton, Chairman Fred Hampton from the Black Panther Party, somebody who largely had been kind of a footnote in history until recently. So tell me about the journey of your knowledge of Fred Hampton, his story, and then saying, you know what, this is the project to pursue for us.
Right. So I mean, we got into the industry, got into comedy around 2010. And, right then and there, we knew like we wanted to become as good as we can get in stand up. And we wanted to figure out a way to break into filmmaking. So those are like our two goals that we were pursuing at the same time simultaneously.
Can I interrupt? Did the film goal precede the stand up goal, or were they kind of parallel? Like, were you thinking of film prior?
So when we were on the verge of leaving law school, the first thing we ever did was we bought a screenwriting book. That was like the first thing we wanted to pursue. We wanted to figure out ways to write screenplays. But, we realized like, this is going to be more than just like read a book for a week and write a screenplay. This is going to be something that's going to take maybe years, decades. So while we were, figuring out ways to break into filmmaking, we were like, well, let's do stand up, because Kenny had already tried to do stand up a little bit. And we were like, maybe if we do stand up first, we can figure out our POV, we can figure out our voice, we can figure out what we want to say. Mm-hmm. And while we're figuring out what we want to say, we can be learning the tools and of how to write a screenplay. So they were more or less working in concert with one another. And I think so around 2012, while we were working on the animated show and working on stand up, we started thinking about what film we would want to try to make, and we circled back around to Fred Hampton.
And it's such a ripe time, really, to dig into his legacy against the backdrop of Black Lives Matter and all of those things being at the forefront now. And in fact, many of the Ferguson leaders being disappearing or being killed or whatever you say. So this is not ancient history by any stretch. No. These are the types of tactics that, whether it's police forces or the federal government, still employ. So it's such a pertinent story even to now.
Oh yeah, right. And I think that's not by accident, because when we were thinking of the story, it was right around the time of Michael Brown, and there was a lot of anger at that, and Trayvon Martin. There's a lot of anger towards that, and the beginnings of the Black Lives Matter movement. So I think the story obviously speaks to that time, because it's indicative of the fact that no matter how much progress we do make in history, there's always this sort of nagging presence of the police to remind us that our civil liberties and our lives can be taken away from us whenever they so choose.